Yeah, look, it's really interesting. Li Qiang has been trying to emphasise on his visit that there has been a long and friendly relationship between New Zealand and China. New Zealand, although it's a small economy, has been really important for China because it was the first Western country in 2008 to strike a free trade agreement with China. And that signified that China had a market economy. This is something that China was really wanting to give this message to the world. But things have changed in, the last 12 months or so. New Zealand once was quite moderate, was less willing than other Five Eyes intelligence partners to criticise China. But now it's starting to match that of Australia, that it has criticised China's security ambitions in the Pacific. It called out a cyber hacking of New Zealand's parliament earlier this year that happened a few years ago. And in the meeting today with Li Qiang, Christopher Luxon said he did raise foreign interference. He spoke about cyber hacking. He spoke about human rights issues. This is a shift in tone from New Zealand.
Yeah, it also seems to be a shift in how China's approaching it. Instead of immediately sort of isolating New Zealand as they did with us for many, many years, China seems to be taking a different approach. It's not necessarily going to help regarding its ambitions in this area, which it's not going to back off on.
Yeah, it's a really, New Zealand's a much smaller economy, so perhaps there's less at stake than with Australia. It's really trying to keep friendly relations with New Zealand. There's been a few guarded warnings from the Chinese ambassador there. Don't let our good friendship fall away. Today, Li Qiang said, don't let our differences become a chasm. But this comes perhaps at a different time. China's relationships with the United States and with Europe are quite fraught. The economy in China is a concern. So Li Qiang's task as Premier is to really try and boost that economy, to try and find friends where he can and keep those that he has.
Yeah. Of course, Li Qiang is going to now come to Australia after his New Zealand visit. Tensions here have calmed quite a bit with China. There still are issues that need to be raised, though.
That's right. So the $20 billion that's been much talked about over the last few years, the trade blocks on agricultural and commodity products, most of those have now been smoothed over. There'll be, a lunch at a vineyard in South Australia on Sunday to signal that, a lot of the business community is expecting those last trade blocks on seafood to fall. But there's an even tougher issue ahead for Australia and China. And that we'll see that when Li Qiang heads to Western Australia. So Australia's always been a really important resources exporter to China, and the bilateral relationship's really been built on the fact that Australia is the top iron ore supplier. But in the future, with energy transition, there are other kinds of commodities that will become important. Rare earths used in electric vehicle batteries and lithium. And China is really pushing at the moment to keep a stake in the Australian mining industry at a time when Australia is under pressure from the United States and from Europe to become a supply partner to those security allies. So it's a really difficult issue for Australia and China to negotiate. And I suspect that that's where the most direct discussion and, the toughest discussions over Australia's foreign investment review board, recent restrictions on Chinese investors in that rare earth and lithium sector. That's going to be the real tough discussions in the days to come.
Yeah. The main question we need to know, Kirsty, is are we going to keep pandas or get more pandas?
Or pandas that do something. They've been there for 9 years. Panda diplomacy is really important. When Richard Nixon went to China in 1972, pandas came to Washington. Last year, there were pandas recalled from the US and Britain. We've had them for 9 years. They haven't done anything. They're supposed to be a breeding pair. So the question is, do they stay or do we get another breeding pair that might result in a panda baby?
That's what we need to solve the world's problems. I'm telling you now, a panda baby. Kirsty, thank you for keeping an eye on this, and it'll be very interesting when the Premier comes to Australia. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.